Test one, two, test one, two. If somebody who is listening to this could let me know if this is coming through, that would be great. Test one, two, test one, two. If somebody who is listening to this could let me know if this is coming through, that would be great. Test one, two, test one, two. If somebody who is listening to this could let me know if this is coming through, that would be great. Okay, we are gonna go ahead and get started. Hopefully, I don't have audio issues. If we do, we're gonna need to take a quick break to try to fix that. Um, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and roll with it. Um, Welcome back. First episode of Cooking with Baber in a long time. We're doing Thanksgiving sides today. I've got all my recipes written down right here. As you can see, they're quite elaborate. I do look at a recipe for the stuffing. It's Kenji's recipe, but everything else we're going to try to do today should just be kind of uh, free flowing. Oh God, I am getting feedback.
Go ahead and get started. Hopefully,
Kill me.
I don't have audio issues. If we do, we're gonna need to take a quick break to try to fix that.
Yeah. All right. I am going to need to try to
Anyways, we're
kill
gonna go ahead and roll with
this.
it. Welcome back. First episode of Cooking with Baber in a long time.
Why is
We're
this
doing
happening?
Thanksgiving sides today. I've got all my recipes written down right here. As you can see, they're quite elaborate. I do look at a recipe for the stuffing. It's Kenji's recipe, but everything else we're going to try to do today should just be kind of free flowing. Oh God, I am getting feedback.
Kill me. This is upsetting. Yeah. All right. I am gonna need to try to kill this. Why is this happening? Um. Okay. Well, I just changed something. I have no idea if it's gonna fix it or not. or make it worse or better. I do need to get started. I did a little bit of magic at television today. We've got the bread for the stuffing already in the oven because that takes about an hour just to dry out by itself. Beth helped me and peeled a couple of the potatoes, but we are just going to go ahead and peel a potato just for funsies. Not that there's any tricks to this, but basically just get this going because again, we are going to try to do a lot today. Hopefully, the little tweak I just made will have fixed it.
Okay, well,
Nope, certainly didn't.
I just changed something. I have no idea if it's going to
Oh
fix it or not.
God.
Make it worse or better. I do need to get started. I did a little bit of magic at television today. We've got the bread for the stuffing already in the oven because that takes about an hour just to dry out by itself.
Bethy, everything's terrible.
Beth helped me and peeled a
I'm
couple of the
hearing
potatoes,
myself on
but we
the
are just going
video,
to go ahead
and
and peel the
it's
potato
like
just for
3 minutes,
funsies.
like a minute delayed.
Not that there's any tricks to this, but basically just get this going because again, we are going to try to do a lot today. Hopefully, the little tweak I just made will have fixed it. Nope, certainly didn't.
Oh God.
I do need to get started. I did a little bit of magic television today. We've got the bread for the stuffing already in the oven because that takes about an hour just to dry out by itself.
Bethy, everything's terrible.
People in there telling you it's bad, or is it just you?
Okay, maybe that's it. All right, maybe that was what did it. All right, we're gonna keep rolling with it. All right, so we've got our potato peeled. I peeled it on top of a paper towel to kind of help clean up, be a little bit easier. Uh, then essentially just going to cut this into some fairly large chunkers. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. If at some point somebody could just give me a little, I can hear you thumbs up, that would be great. No, that was not it. Well, maybe I'll just be quiet and yeah. Okay. Tried another thing. Maybe that'll fix it. Long story short, we've got the potatoes in water. Just a little bit of water, sort of over the top of them. Cold water. Gonna bring it to a boil. Um, like I said, I've got the bread in the oven uh, for the stuffing. I'm basically just 300, 275, 300, just letting them sort of dry out as if they were breadcrumbs or not breadcrumbs, croutons. They're pretty much there. I'm gonna go ahead and start chopping stuff for the stuffing. Nothing really too magical here. I think I've cut this recipe roughly in half. It's stuffing, so you can kind of take some creative liberties here, like
pretty much with all these dishes, it is what you want it to be, right? Like the creamed onions are kind of like a family tradition that we've done forever. The potatoes, I think I settled on this recipe back when I was at BU doing culinary instruction for the hospitality program, where we would make a big Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, hello, my love. Oh, you're giving me a hug. That's so sweet. Um, anyways, we would make Thanksgiving dinner for the whole school, not the whole school, but like the whole Shaw program. And we would essentially fill like a 55 quart Hobart with heavy cream and butter. And it was absolutely glorious. Really wanted to use it as like a weird hot tub thing. Anyways, hopefully you guys can still hear me. I think I got rid of the echo. Still not totally sure what that was coming from, but whatever. Here we are. Oh, these are nice little onions. That's perfect. So basically, we're gonna go ahead and get started with the stuffing. I need like basically all the butter in the world, so let's go ahead and put some butter in here. I do miss my sweet instrumental hip hop beats, but alas, what do I do with my phone? There it is. How much butter does this call for? A lot, right? Yeah, yeah, lots of butter. More butter than that. Okay, get that butter in there. Cool. So the sausage, again, like I said earlier, you can kind of do whatever you want, right? So I'm using hot Italian sausage. I think usually I use mild Italian, but hot is what I got, so that's what I'm using. Probably going to use about, I don't know, 2 or 3 links. Let's go ahead and call it 3. Um, Basically, you can buy bulk sausage. Like I really like bulk sage sausage. Although Whole Foods has been recently doing their sausage really, really coarse, which I'm not a huge fan of. Oh wow, that's way too hot. Way too hot. Don't burn your butter, folks. Go easy with your butter. It's gonna be fine, but this pan just got ripping hot way too fast. So we're just gonna let that hang out for a second while we get our sausage dealt with. All right. So just basically get that. If you did buy sausage with casings, just get those out of there. Not a big deal. Ba, ba, ba. Ba, 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 ba. All right, sausage is working. Go ahead and wash our hands here. But yeah, like I said, stage sausage, delicious. Hot Italian sausage, going to be delicious. You do a mix of the two, delicious. I'm sure this recipe is good. If you make it vegetarian, I would have no experience with that, but you know, whatever. All right, so now we can go back on the heat here. And one of the things the recipe tells you to do is like really make sure you mash this up. Obviously you want to try to get the pieces kind of small, but it's not gonna be the end of the world if there's big chunks. And like I said, Whole Foods is doing crazy, crazy big grind on their sausage, so like you can't even break it up that much. But whatever. Yeah, so like in terms of like butter and cream for this holiday, I pretty much never eat mashed potatoes that are made like this outside of Thanksgiving. So I go real hard on the butter and cream and don't really think twice about it. I often joke that I make like Robuchon potatoes, which are sort of a classic, ridiculous recipe where you essentially use the same amount of butter as you do potatoes by weight. To the point where when you plate it, if it's not oozing butter out of the sides, then you didn't put enough butter in it. That's maybe a little bit excessive. For the, I don't know what that was, 4 or 5 potatoes, I'm probably going to do like a stick or two of butter. It's pretty absurd, but it's not going to kill you. I mean, it might. I don't know. And then when I'm making like a lot of mashed potatoes for, the whole family, I do go pretty hard. I'll throw 5, 6 sticks of butter in there. All right, so the bread is done. Um, No, I didn't say 6 sticks. What I meant was not 6 sticks. It's fine. So basically, what we have, these are like, well, I guess these are still a little bit sour. Well, some of them. Yeah, those are good. So what you're looking for is like it to be hard on all sides, which these are. So those are good. Do, 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 do. All right, so again, just kind of like breaking this up into little tiny pieces. If anyone tuned in specifically for cream spinach, I think I have decided to cut that for today's recipe portion and replace it with making gravy. Sorry, there's no way I'm making five recipes in this hour. Not going to happen. So, doing the sausage, we're going to add the onion, celery, garlic, sage, which we're going to go ahead and get prepped now. So, flip back here, do the old cutting an onion trick. You guys should all be familiar with this. But, cut the non-root end off, cut it in half, peel it. You're crashing in the other room. Hope everybody's okay. Hopefully find a way to peel this onion. Great. All right. So, go ahead and dice up this onion. These little tiny onions are very cute. I was not looking forward to using just like half of a large onion. I think the recipe calls for a whole large onion, but this is perfect. Little guy. For the dice on these, like, again, it's kind of what your preference is. I like it a little bit smaller, but, you go with whatever you want. It's pretty hard to screw up stuffing. Like, it's going to be delicious. Like, it's just like delicious bread casserole. I don't know what you want to call it. Lots of chicken stock and butter and savory bits. Okay. So, sausage is looking good. I guess we could do the old tri-cam. Yeah. All right. And then we got our sage. Our sage leaves this year are mighty small, but they're still good. Look at those little, like, if you want to get fancy, you can kind of like tuck them all up into like a little roll and then go through them real fine. But honestly, that seems like a lot of extra effort that we don't really need because, again, it's just stuffing. So I would probably use a little bit more than this, but our sage plant is getting a little bit light on leaves these days. All right, so that's in there, and then we just need some garlic. We're going to microplane the garlic because, again, I'm here for ease of use. And again, basically that's just take the microplane, run the garlic around the top of it, and we're done. Do a couple cloves here. Very good, very good. Hey Beth, when you have a minute, will you get me some of those aluminum like pans? Unless you want me to use like real pans. I don't care. And then we are going to use this for the nutmegging a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a rinse. All right, so the sausage is looking good here. Could be a little bit more broken up. I'll give it a couple more little smushes. And the pan could be hotter. Whatever. How are our potatoes looking? All right, our potatoes are boiling. So we're basically cooking those until they're done. I may or may not skip the interim step that you can do with them. So there's a trick where you don't really want a lot of water in your potatoes. And like you're boiling them, so there's obviously going to be water. What you can do is you can throw them onto a sheet tray after you're done and dry them out in the oven. You want to be really careful though because it is totally possible to over dry them, and then you end up with like these like kind of weird skins, and then they become really really hard to put through the sieve. So it's the kind of thing where it's a little bit of risk, a little bit of reward. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. You're not going to have bad potatoes, I promise. Did I not? I left a whole potato. Oh, classic. Yeah, we're gonna fix that because that's not good. Whoopsie.
Hot potato. Oh God, guys, we're doing good here. Oh, this is fun. Check this out. So there's like, where are we? Here. You can kind of see like how the potatoes kind of cooked. Science, science. But we are gonna. Oh, this is gonna be weird. You know what? I'm just gonna say that the potato is gonna be for something else because now that one's gonna be like underdone and it's gonna be a disaster. But we're gonna get our other stuff going in this pan. Cool, cool, cool. All right, that's looking nice. Let that go for a little while. That smells amazing. All right, you guys are gonna see that. That looks so good. Look at that. All right. So we are looking good on our stuffing. That's got to go. We're waiting basically now for our potatoes to be pretty much totally cooked, and you can tell just by hitting them with a fork. If you put a fork into it and it completely crumbles to pieces, it's a little bit overdone. If you put a fork in and find basically no resistance, it's pretty much perfect. And if you struggle to put a fork in, it's not quite there. So you kind of want to monitor it. I didn't add any salt to the water. Probably should have done that. It doesn't really matter because like we have plenty of opportunity to season it later. Um, it's doing its thing. It'll be fine. For the onions, let's talk about the onions for a second. So usually I use these guys, or I think Market Basket made their own brand. I don't know if they have them this year because I just ordered what I thought was going to be them on Instacart, and they sent me these, which are not the same thing. These were frozen. I'm going to try the frozen ones for this demo, and if they're horrible, I'm going to tell you that they're delicious. No, I'm just kidding. If they're horrible, I'll let you guys know. The jarred ones are nice because they're kind of like, I hesitate to say like pre-cooked, but they're like when they jar them, they kind of have to heat them up, so they are a little bit softer than they would otherwise be. So I like the jarred ones. The Aunt Nellie's are great. Do not get pickled onions. They're not going to be good. You're going to have a horrible time. I made that mistake one year. I got like these weird like Turkish pickled onions, and they were absolutely horrible. So don't make that mistake. All right, this is looking nice. Let's check our potatoes again. Still need a little bit more time. Again, I just tried to push a fork into one. Couldn't quite make it all the way through without, really pushing on it. Want to make sure our pan isn't too hot. We're not trying to like go crazy on this here. Let's just take a look at our recipe, make sure we're not screwing anything up. Ba, ba, ba. All right, so what we can do actually for the stuffing is get all the rest of our wet ingredients ready. So we're gonna add like, I think it said half the chicken stock here, half chicken stock. So we need 1 quart, so a quarter of a quart, so some amount, I don't know, like whatever that is. I'm not very good at conversions. All right, so we're gonna put that in there. It's probably about right. Ba-ba-ba. Oh, did we get parsley? Beth? Oh, Beth's not even in there. I've been talking to her. She's not there. It's a good time. All right. So it says 3 eggs. I'm doing half. Hard to do half an egg, so we're gonna go 2 eggs. And then supposed to be some parsley in there, I believe. Hopefully we got some. Cilantro, parsley. Cilantro, parsley. If you ever want to tell the difference between cilantro and parsley, I'm going to turn this down. So, I don't know. Where are we looking here? It's going to be very difficult to see. So, parsley has like bigger fingers. You guys definitely can't see this. And cilantro has like littler fingers. If that makes sense, like the little like edges of the leaves. Cilantro has more of them and they are smaller. Parsley has fewer of them and they are bigger. You can also taste it, smell it, lick it, do whatever you want with it. Wow, that's a big honkin' parsley boy. Okay, I like it. Go back to the cutting board. No real trick to cutting parsley. Basically, just chop it. If you're chopping like a whole ton of it, there are tricks. I mean, not really. You're mostly just chopping it. But what you can do is if you have to chop like a whole case of parsley is you wash the whole thing really good. You chop it while it's still wet, so it all kind of sticks together and it doesn't go flying everywhere. And then you put it on sheet trays with paper towels and let them dry. And then you have really delightful parsley. But ain't nobody got time for that. It's just like restaurant crap. All right, so that should be fine. I'm going to put some of this in our egg. Chicken broth. We're going to check on our potatoes again. What's the time? Oh my god, we have so much time. This is glorious. Potatoes haven't boiled over. Life is good. Probably could have done this in a bigger container. Okay, our potatoes are done. Borderline overdone. So what happens when you get to talking? But again, they're going to be totally fine. Go ahead and find some towels. All right, so you can just actually tell by looking at these potatoes that they're a little bit over. They kind of have that like kind of rough exterior, which just means that they've really started to break down. So I actually am going to use the oven trick because there's way too much water in these. So I'll bring this over and so you guys can see. Pan. So hopefully the steam is not too much, but you can see that like they don't have like crispy edges anymore. They're like very much mushy. So we're going to go ahead and take these, throw them on a sheet tray, and pop them in a 300-degree oven. Thankfully, when you're doing Thanksgiving stuff, you pretty much always have an oven running, so it's not like a big deal to just throw some stuff in there. I'm going to set a timer so I don't forget. We're going to go 7 minutes. This is looking good. I have to imagine our veggies are pretty much cooked. Yeah, that'll work. Let's give our, ooh, that spicy sausage looks nice. Give our chicken stock a little whiskeroo with the egg in there, break it down. Cool, cool, cool. Hey, parsley's fine. Cilantro is what people usually don't like. It's funny that you don't like parsley. Okay, so we're gonna add half the chicken stock, which again is like a cup. Sure, this should be about half full. Sounds about right. Great stuff. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and whisk in the rest of this. I don't know why I divided it, doesn't really matter. That's what we're looking for. Grand. And then I think we can turn the heat off on this. Let me get our big old bowl. Get our breadcrumbs into it. Ah! Bread everywhere. Bread overload. All right. That might be challenging, but it's fine. Gotta get that pan that I was talking about. Lasagna pan. Yeah. Okay. So I love these aluminum pans. Highly recommend just keeping a bunch on hand. They're incredibly useful. You do want to give them a little rinse. It's a little gross, but they're just kind of like hanging out in the grocery store, and a lot of times people will just use them without washing them. You don't have to go crazy. I'm not saying put them in the dishwasher, but like put them with a little soap, put them with some water. Make sure you get all the soap off. Not rocket science here. But like it just makes life so much easier. You don't have to like clean all the extra casseroles, which are always the hardest thing to clean. And like, you can always, if you're putting stuff away and there's, an opportunity to send people home with leftovers, and you can, I mean, this year, friends with those. But you can use these, to send people home with leftovers or whatever, and it's real nice. All right, so this is what it's going to go into. We will put that, I don't need this cutting board anymore. Let's get this out of here. All right, great. So now, I don't need this either.
You're gone. All right, cutting board. So yeah, so we have this big bowl of what are essentially croutons, totally toasted bread. This started off as fresh sandwich bread. You don't want to use like Wonder Bread, but just like a nice sandwich bread. Did I do anything wrong here? Let's see. Nope. All right, great. We're gonna just pour this on here. Whee! Oh yeah, get all the good butter and chicken stock. So you might have noticed I haven't added any salt to this, and now there's raw eggs in here. I'm not super picky about raw eggs. I eat cookie dough and stuff. I think everybody does. Long story short, you're gonna want to season the crap out of this. The only way to really tell is just to know what you're doing or to taste it. Feel free to taste it, like it's not a big deal. So then we're just going to give this a little mixeroo. Before we finish mixing it, we're going to start adding salt because the more you play with this, the more it's just going to become bread goo. So for those of you who like sort of more or less liquidy stuffing, don't overmix it. And also you can go a little bit light on the chicken stock if you want. Totally personal preference. I like a good wet stuffing, so I stick to the recipe. And this is actually looking a little bit dry, so I might actually add some more chicken stock. It's entirely possible that I mismeasured. But all right, so we're gonna go ahead and start seasoning this. Figure out where the salt and pepper are. There they are. Great. So you kind of want to just add a little bit and then mix it up because since it's bread, it will grab a hold of stuff and kind of not let it go. So you don't want to like have some really, really seasoned parts and some unseasoned parts. But again, being sort of aware that the more you mix it, the more you risk just making bread pudding. All right. Probably could use the bigger bowl. This is one of the biggest bowls I have. Sometimes I'll do this, like this is a half batch. So like the actual portion of this recipe is gigantic. So sometimes I'll like mix it up in two separate kind of containers, which makes life a little bit easier. All right. That's probably pretty good. Give that a little taste. That's nice. Use a little more chicken stock. And more salt. And I think that's going to be good. All right. I'm going to check on our potatoes here in a minute. Timer hasn't gone off yet, but Spidey sense is tingling a little bit. What you don't want to see are like super dry edges. I'm going to give this one more taste. Yep. All right. Okay, so those are looking pretty much perfect. So, whoa, hey. So now we have like some dry spots, but they're not like totally all white. So that's gonna be great for what we want. We do still need the oven on. What did we bake this at? Like 375 or something? 350. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna crank our oven up for the stuffing. My oven's a little cold, so I'm gonna go 375. We're gonna put this in here. Give it a little smooth action. This would probably fill this entire container plus a little bit more if it was the full batch. Then we want to cover this so it kind of like steams itself a little bit. I love this heavy duty tinfoil from Costco. It is the best. All right. Throw that in the oven. It'll go for like an hour or so. All right. Let's finish these potatoes. Hopefully, gosh, time flies. We should have time for everything. All right. So I wanted to use that bowl, but it's now dirty. Where's my big bowl? All right. What we are going to do is rice our potatoes at the same time as heating up the potato goodness. So We have, hopefully that pan works on there. All right, so let's check if the pan works first. Yes. All right, so heavy cream, quite a lot. That much is probably good. You don't want to go crazy with the heavy cream because it'll make your potatoes liquidy, but you can go crazy with the butter. So I'm using unsalted butter. If you want to use salted for this, it's totally fine. Just use less salt when you add salt. So we're going to go 2 sticks because I like butter. And basically we're going to keep this up so that when we add it to our potatoes, it doesn't like make it instantly cold. Most of the time, let me talk for a second about Thanksgiving prep. So this year again is wacky. You know, I think most of you probably are going to be having dinner with just your immediate family, so it's going to be maybe a little less stressful than having the 10 or 12 or 20 or 30 people, whatever that you normally have. I do almost all of my Thanksgiving prep the day before. So I make my stuffing the day before. I make my onions the day before. I make my cream spinach the day before. The mashed potatoes the day before. All of it reheats super well, as you pretty much all know from the fact that you've had Thanksgiving leftovers. I find no joy in having a crazy, through 6-7 hours, whatever, before Thanksgiving, where everybody's running around like crazy people trying to get oven space and get stove space and bumping into each other and being stressed out and yelling at each other. Like, I just want it to be done. Which isn't to say that I haven't done that, and I actually don't find it that bad. I just think it's so much more fun to not have to do that. So there's a couple more things that I'm going to put in here, which is namely a ton of salt. So huge pinch of salt, way more than you think is going to be necessary. You don't want to like taste this. This is going to taste awful. But once it's mixed into the potatoes are going to need a ton of help. I also do a couple dashes of Tabasco. Not enough that you're going to actually taste it. Again, it's going into a bunch of potatoes, but it's just a nice little something that like most people will never really actually notice. They're just going to say like, "Holy crap, these are the best potatoes I've ever had in my life." And then a whole bunch of black pepper. You can do white pepper if you're like not feeling the whole black pepper in your potatoes thing, but like I love black pepper, so that's what we're gonna rock out with. Okay, and then we're just gonna melt that. You don't want to let this like go boil or anything. You're just like heating it up and getting it ready. Okay, so let's talk about potato devices. So I like this thing. I also like this thing. This thing is better than this thing. They're both ricers. They're both kind of like big garlic presses. They're both kind of cheap and chintzy and will eventually break. I consider these disposable. I usually buy one like every 2 years. There's a bunch of different ways to mash your potatoes. You can just mash them like normal with a masher. Please do not put them in like a food processor or like you can do a KitchenAid. It's still not going to be totally smooth, but like don't overmix it. The thing you don't want to do is overwork your potatoes, right? They get gluey, they get gross. I like totally smooth potatoes, which is why I use the ricer. Basically, the way this works, you put a bunch of potatoes in it. Let's see, can you guys see? Yeah, that'll work, I guess. Put a bunch of potatoes in it. Put the little wing-ding guy in there. And out come beautiful potato, ricey goodness. And then you just repeat that until you've riced all your potatoes. Easy peasy. Again, this model is pretty cool with this little like plunger thing. It does help get it all through pretty nicely. And again, you're really only doing like one thing to these potatoes. You're pushing them through this ricer, and that's it. Once that's done, the only other thing you're going to do with them is mix in this cream mixture, and you're going to want to mix them as little as possible. So like you're really trying to get the seasoning right on the first try. It's not the end of the world if you have to season it a couple times. You just don't want to like keep stirring them and stirring them and stirring them and stirring them because they will just get gluey, and nobody likes gluey potatoes. And then all this stuff that kind of like backs out the side is totally fine to just push in. It's already essentially been riced, just not through the ricer, just around the ricer. And you don't want to overload the ricer. I can put a link in the chat to this ricer afterwards. I freaking love this thing. I used to push them like through a big drum sieve. That took forever. Definitely caused some tears. Oh, and one year I got like a really fancy one and it broke the first time I used it and I wanted to die. That was awful. All right. Let's not put that there. Ovens put off a lot of heat. So when you put stuff on top of your stove with your oven on, it's going to heat up. Pro tip. Alrighty. So this should be getting warm. Butter's not quite melted. You can go ahead and just look at that if you want to stare at that butter. All right, so all that's left to do basically is to make a big roux. Now, I pretty much have not had a Thanksgiving where I have not had to make roux at least twice. I always try to make enough in the first batch, and it's never enough. Oh, and then real quick, this is what this looks like when it's done. It's just like a big kind of pile of tasty riced potato-y goodness. All right. Food mills are fine. I found the whole like the crank thing like is usually I could never find a good one. So I always just found it really annoying because they would like break or like I couldn't put enough potato in it that it would like make sense. I don't know. If they work for you, they're great. What anything you need to do to get the potatoes into this form is good. You know, you could put them in a potato cannon, just like shoot them through a sieve or something. I really don't care. All right, so I'm going to start by adding about half of this mixture. Oh no, some of my butter hadn't melted. This is mostly cream. Whatever, it's fine. So this is what this looks like. Oh yeah. I'm going to give that a stir. Ellie wants snacks. That can probably be arranged. We got some mashed potatoes coming together right now. And again, I'm just gently kind of folding this together. Just until there's like no liquid sort of floating around in there. And then we're going to give this a taste. I could take more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just folding it. Folding it. Oh, that was a weird noise. Folding it.
Like the butterless potatoes.
Well, who knew? All right. Let's see if that's good enough. There's so little left in here. We're just gonna go for it. There we go. Maybe too much. Nope, it's gonna go right in the sink. Okay, now it's looking serious. Woo-wee. Alrighty, these are potatoes. Oh my gosh, I love these potatoes so much. And now I get to make them twice. Oh. All right. So just as soon as there's no liquid visible is when you're done. So that's what the potatoes look like. Oh my God, those are so good. Mm. 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 All right, that's it. We're done. Just gonna eat this whole bowl of potatoes. Mm. Okay, so yeah, that roux, roux. So you always want a 1-to-1 ratio of butter to flour. So we're going to go 1 stick of butter, melted. 1 stick is 8 tablespoons, right?
What?
1 stick, 8 tablespoons. Cool. So once, right? What is Ellie's favorite Thanksgiving side? I don't know. What did she like last year? The stuffing? She went pretty ham on the stuffing last year. It was impressive. What is she eating? Oh, bread. Watch your head, baby. Oh, bonked it. Okay, so roux. Roux is in a ton of stuff. If you've never made roux before, you're basically just making flour and butter mixed together and heated up. There's a bunch of different levels of roux. You can have like a blonde roux, which is basically no color, all the way to a dark roux, which is basically like
almost blackened. For both of these purposes, so I'm using this roux to make both the gravy and the creamed onions. Um, I'm going to go somewhere in between, right? So like essentially what you want to start smelling is like kind of a nutty flavor or nutty smell. Um, you don't want to just kind of mix the flour in and call it a day because it's just going to taste like flour. And what you're doing when you're cooking the roux is essentially cooking the raw flour taste out of it. So pretty much as soon as this finishes melting, we'll be ready to go ahead and get started. And typically what I do is I'll make a roux for the gravy and it's plenty. And then I'll make a separate roux because I'll be like, oh shoot, I forgot to make a roux for the creamed onions. And I'll make it for the creamed onions and it's never enough. So then I have to make a third roux to add to the creamed onions because they're too thin. So hopefully this is going to be enough. And if it's not, I'll probably make another roux. All right. What did we say? 8 tablespoons? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish, 6-ish, 7, 8. I'm sure there's an easier conversion for that. I'm feeling real lazy. I don't care. All right. So just going to kind of incorporate this in here. And as you do this, you'll see it kind of like comes together into almost like a paste, not like a paste, almost like I don't know, like a dough. I don't know what you want to call this. It's just butter and flour. If it looks really weird, like if it's super duper liquidy or super duper solid, you probably screwed up the ratios. For a long time, I made roux just by like eyeballing it, and the number of times that I screwed up the ratios and it was like really strange was too many to count, so I stopped doing that. All right, so we're gonna just turn this up a little bit because we do actually need to finish this in a reasonable time period. And while we do that, I'm gonna get the onions started. So the onions, unbelievably simple. We're going to go onions in a pan. Yeah, right? They're good. And again, I'm using these frozen onions. Hopefully they're good. I'm committing a cardinal sin with my roux by leaving it unattended right now, but that's life. Oh, and I'm also completely screwing up this recipe. You don't start with the onions. So, now the onions are in there. Doing great. Come on, get out of there. Cool. All right, let's focus on our roux. We don't want to burn this. Give it some stirring. It's going okay. We're not going to burn it. So right now, all I smell is raw flour. There's no real nuttiness happening yet, and there's no color change happening yet. But this is the texture you're looking for. So kind of like it's not dry, and it's also not super liquidy. Nice roux. All right, so what am I going to do with that situation? Ellie's in here with a spoon. Did you send her in here with this? Uh-huh. Okay, so usually what you do with the onions is you start with the roux, and then you add the milk. You make sure it's nice and thick, and then you add the onions. That's what we're going to attempt to do to remedy my silly mistake a moment ago. I'm currently cooking this in a non-stick pan. It's what I recommend. Just makes life a little bit easier. Not any particular. It's not like it's going to stick. It just I don't know. I think it's easier to clean up, and it doesn't make it any more difficult or easier to cook. So yeah, no, it's super easy, especially if you're not paying attention to burn a roux. You got to keep stirring it. You got to keep an eye on it. If you walk away from it for a couple minutes, you're pretty much toast. So once it starts getting all bubbly like this, what you know is happening is that the water is cooking out of the butter. Totally fine, but this is kind of what you would consider like the stall, right? Because the
the water can only boil at a certain temperature, right, at boiling temperature. Um, and so you can't actually get to that, nice blonde phase before all that water is cooked out. So kind of the faster you get through this phase, the faster you'll get to blonde. But at the same time, if you crank the heat, you're risking certain failure. I'm sure there's some weird like, oh, you can sous vide a roux. Like I'm sure you can. That probably is the thing. That just seems like a lot of work, and I just like making a roux. So this is starting to, still not smelling nutty yet, but it's starting to change. It's no longer like just totally raw flour. All right, we got about 10 minutes. That probably is enough time. If I go over, I go over. Thanksgiving's not a perfectly scheduled thing. Had a little bit of technical difficulties at the beginning, and we're rolling into 5 o'clock. So hopefully you guys can hang out. If not, I won't be offended. All right. This is definitely getting there. You can see it's like slowing down a little bit with the bubbles. Went to a cooking class and the instructor burned the roux and then tried to gaslight us by telling us how it's supposed to taste in a style we didn't know about. Yeah, like burned roux style. It's definitely not a thing. It's amazing. Like when I used to teach cooking classes, if I screwed something up, I absolutely owned up to it because, like, honestly, most of the things that I know how to do, I know because I screwed them up. So like, if you're not screwing it up, you're not really learning. And like, so if I, the person who like actually knows what's going on, like managed to screw it up, like that is an incredible teaching moment. So I would always explain what I did wrong. And if there's something that you can, if there's something you can do to fix it, obviously you want to try it, but it's not always the case. If burned roux is not really any coming back from that. Now, not making enough roux, obviously you can remedy. All right, we're cranking the heat a little bit on this. We're going to the danger zone. All right, let's go roux. All right, still not quite smelling nutty. We're going hot. We're going real hot. Let's get there. All right, so while that's doing, I'm gonna grab the milk. Oh no, the roux! This is also a fair bit of roux. Part of the reason why I like to make roux in small batches is because it goes so much faster, but it's all good. Okay, now I'm starting to smell, oh yeah, starting to smell nutty. It's not quite where I want it yet, but you can see there's some color coming up from the bottom. Hopefully that might be coming through in video, and you can see the bubbles are really slowing down and are like more viscous than they were before. And hopefully you've been able to tell that the color has changed kind of a lot. Like it's now starting to get like more towards brown. Obviously it's still very tan, but there is like a brown tint to it. And I'm now getting a lot of sort of nutty. Oh yeah, that's smelling really good. All right, so this is probably good for both of my applications. So I think I'm gonna just go ahead and cut this heat off. The pan is hot and the burner is a little bit hot from just the residual heat, so it'll keep cooking a little bit, but I don't want to keep adding heat to it. All right, so we're going to take about half of this and put it in our pot over here. Hopefully that was about half, and I managed to drip a bunch of it all over the place. Classic. All right, so I think that was about half, maybe. Sure. So I'm going to turn this on over here, and I'm leaving this off over here. So I'm just going to add some milk to this one. Probably about, I don't know, cup and a half-ish. This is, again, a very eyeballed recipe. If I decide later I need more milk, I will add it. Bring this up to temp, give it a little boil. And then once that's good, we're going to add a bunch of salt, pepper, and nutmeg. Whoa, sprayed milk everywhere. That was great. Great. All right, so then over here, turn the heat back on. We'll make our gravy. So
typically, if you were going to make a really, really tasty Thanksgiving gravy, you would use your turkey drippings. But I don't have any turkey drippings because I didn't make any turkey. So we're just using butter and flour, and then you would use turkey stock if you happen to have that. One thing I really like to do right after Thanksgiving is go to the butcher and get like all of the turkey bones at like hilariously rock bottom prices, and then make a giant batch of turkey stock, and freeze a whole lot of it because you get the bones for so freaking cheap. So basically, all I've done here is I just added the chicken stock. So we're gonna make a chicken gravy. Um, Ideally, I would have kind of like whisked it in slowly, but doing a lot of stuff here, so it's fine. Um, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about what goes in gravy. Some people put red wine in. Some people, I mean, I love like giblets, which giblets are great. Again, don't have any right now. But really, all gravy is just a roux plus some stock. Once this gets going, I'm probably going to add some salt. I'm certainly going to add some MSG, which I actually don't see it. Beth, where'd the MSG? Oh, there it is, hiding. So this is just pure MSG, and it's freaking amazing. Highly recommend throwing a dash in anything you're trying to make extra umami-y. A lot of people have a lot of negative connotations about MSG, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It is seaweed extracted, and it is freaking delicious. If you actually do some research on like the studies, no one has actually been found to really have sensitivities to it. Like I think maybe if people do, it's like 1 in 10 million or something absurd. It is certainly not as common as it is thought to be. So as you can see, this really quickly became a really nice, very glossy, very thick sauce. And as it continues to heat up, and once it hits a boil, it'll become even thicker, like to the point where I could probably even add more chicken stock to this. But it's looking very nice. Gonna go ahead and put some pepper in here. But yeah, anyways, like whatever your gravy wants is what it wants. Like whatever tastes good to you, go for it. If you're not sure what you want to put in it, you can always like make it and then separate out some of it in like a mug or whatever, and then experiment. Add a little bit of wine, add a little bit of MSG, add some more salt, and you'll quickly realize what's working and what's not. All right, so the milk has now boiled and is now very thick, the same way that the gravy is. I'm gonna go ahead and add a bunch of salt, pepper. So pretty much the same thing I'm adding to the gravy. So salt. The onions will need even more salt because they currently don't have any, and they will soak up a bunch. Again, another reason why they're even better to make the day before. They're just going to soak up all that salt and all that nutmeg and pepper and everything, and just be really delicious. Put a little bit of our MSG in there. And then nutmeg as the last thing for the onions. Oh yeah, I used the whole other one. All right, so get our nutmeg going. Go pretty hard on the nutmeg because it's like the only seasoning in here other than salt and pepper. So it's nice to have a little something in there. And then give that a little taste. Now these need to cook for a little while. I'll let them go usually for, I don't know, maybe an hour. You kind of want to keep them real low because otherwise you risk scalding the milk. Let's see if I can get you guys a little peek at these. So you've seen the gravy. Gravy's looking good. This is what the creamed onions look like. Right, so just like nice and thick and rich and creamy onion deliciousness. And that's it. I'm really glad I didn't try to make cream spinach because that would not have happened. We barely got through all this, but if I was making it as well, I would have probably had it on the stove
at this point, but like the other stuff wouldn't have been, you know, quite finished. So it's these are all dishes, especially if you have help. You know, you can get them all going kind of simultaneously, and just make sure you're setting timers and stuff. You know, to keep track of things. You don't want to burn stuff. Burning stuff is kind of not really recoverable sometimes. So that's the really one thing you want to avoid. But pretty much everything else, like you know, you can add more chicken stock. You can throw some more salt in there. Obviously, you know, salt you want to be careful with. You don't want to over salt stuff, but it's usually pretty difficult. Mm. All right, so obviously these haven't cooked at all, but the frozen onions taste fine. I'm really hoping they're going to soak up a lot of the salt from those because they're very unseasoned. Texture-wise, they're similar-ish to the jarred onions, but no huge complaints. Those are probably going to be good. All right, I'm going to catch up on the chat really quick and just see if anybody has any questions that I missed. But otherwise, I really appreciate you guys joining here, and hope you guys all have a really nice Thanksgiving. You know, with whatever you guys are able to put together, and yeah, it's been fun. I miss doing this. Let's see here. All right, so it looks like I didn't miss any questions. I guess I didn't check the YouTube chat, although at this point I like closed everything. All right, well, again, hope you guys had fun. I certainly had fun. I have a huge thing of potatoes I get to eat now. I didn't show you the stuffing, but it's going to look basically the same when it comes out of the oven. I'm really excited about my onions. Gravy is going to be really good on the mashed potatoes and on the stuffing. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a fun time. See you guys next time.